Bueno, en el caso de Colombia, la realidad que atraviesan muchos territorios se deriva de causas estructurales que necesitan ser abordadas desde la cooperación para el desarrollo, pero a la vez generan afectaciones humanitarias que tienen que ser abordadas desde la acción humanitaria.
The situation that we faced at the early stages of the peace process really was a perfect laboratory to link humanitarian and development work. On the one hand, because it was necessary for us to start helping the country de-escalate the conflict and impact of the violence. As you know, the peace process took place in the midst of conflict, in the midst of continued impact on communities. But to reach a successful conclusion and reconciliation eventually, we needed to start decreasing the levels of violence. And that we could do leveraging our humanitarian presence, analysis, figures, and also our long-standing work with the victims. It was really about putting the victims in the center and giving a human face to what was going on in Colombia as the negotiations were going on. The second part is about the local level of this conflict. It's taking place, or took place in the remote regions of the country, and our presence there, the presence of the international community in those areas were primarily humanitarian. And to help peace along in those areas, we needed to leverage that humanitarian presence, both NGOs and UN agencies, to start, if you so, do confidence-building measures that would consolidate peace at the local level. And the third one is really linked to how humanitarian assistance has been working in the country for many, many years. Since a long time, the prime principles of humanitarian action has been protection and resilience. And protection of human rights and realizing the human rights agenda and building resilience of those communities are really the same ingredients that we need for a successful peace consolidation in Colombia. And for all of these reasons, Colombia was a perfect example of how we must bring together both the humanitarian development side to be successful.
One of the key elements of this vision has been to work with the Humanitarian Coordinator. Because we needed really to have this political level of interest on this initiative. The second thing was really, it's a backbone of all the information. If you want really to have a planning, if you want to understand how to do in a situation like Colombia, we really needed to have an information management system. This is what we did. And the third element was that everything is happening at the local level, not in the capital in Bogota. So we decided to create this local coordination team between humanitarian and development actors at the field level, where we had not only the quantity of the figure, but also the quality of the information. And where the humanitarian and the development actor went together and still are working, not only for collecting information, but also to do mission and to have planning together.
Actually, what we have done in Colombia, we kind of capitalized the good practices of the humanitarian side and the humanitarian coordination system, complementing it with the key issues on the development side. And in the case of Colombia, obviously, we also need to take into account the peace-building needs. So basically, we really wanted to do something simple, practical, and useful.
Well, when I arrived in Colombia, the figure of IDP in Colombia were around 7 million people. And we had to understand why we had all these people displaced. What was the root cause? And probably the root cause of the IDP in Colombia came from lack of development or not enough development. So it became as an evidence that if we wanted to understand why we had this displacement, we have to understand from where it comes. So this is why we decided to set up an information management system where we could have either the information of humanitarian, for how many people displaced, etc., but also what was the situation of the development on this country. Did they have access? Did they have to school? Did they have food? Did they have work there? So that was really the first step of our idea, to understand through information what were the root cause of the humanitarian situation in Colombia.
Well, bridging humanitarian and development work is a bit of a mind shift that we have to go through as practitioners. But I think there are fairly simple and practical steps that brings us together in doing this. In our case, there were really three things. One, to have a shared analysis and shared information about what the situation looked like. The situation on the ground is one. It doesn't divide itself into humanitarian development. We need to read both the humanitarian, peace building and development indicators and the analysis unit, the UMAIC that we created here in Colombia based on the humanitarian information model, but adding those other ingredients serve that purpose. The second one is the local coordination team. Again, at the local level, everyone crosses paths and works with the same communities and same actors, but yet we had a humanitarian local coordination group and then development and peace building actors that were not connected into that. And the local coordination team, what it helped us do is to put everyone in the same room and discuss and align and coordinate priorities of how best to improve the situation on the ground for the communities and have a common discussion with the local authorities. And the third one, which is actually incidentally very interesting in terms of just how do we break down the barriers, was the use of the 4Ws tool. The who, does, what, where, and when. We had a picture of what we were doing, UN and partners, in terms of humanitarian action, which included a lot of resilience and protection work. But we didn't have that same picture of where our development interventions were and where our peace-building interventions were. And a lot of these times, these crossed. So one very practical thing that we started with was to get that done for the development side, for the whole of our UNDAF, for the whole of our development and peace-building strategy. And once we could sit down with the local coordination teams and look at what our whole presence and contribution looked like in the territory, it became very natural to do a closer coordination and closer planning of our interventions.
Basically, in LCT, we have established formally joint leadership. Basically, from the local coordination team, the members select and propose who should take the lead on the humanitarian side and who should take the lead on peace building and development side. So basically, this is very effective because it really brings together the practicality and the know-how of the different local level international actors.
Pues para las ONGs locales, participar en el equipo local de coordinación es importante primero porque nosotros somos muy cercanos a las comunidades, podemos conocer y reconocer las realidades, las brechas, y esto también nos permite tener una capacidad operativa más fuerte que otros cooperantes externos. En otro sentido, también nos permite tener una coordinación con otros actores del equipo local en términos de hacer misiones conjuntas, hacer coordinación de acciones, hacer coordinación de necesidades. Esta sería como básicamente la importancia. Y con respecto a cómo utilizamos la OMAIC, que es una herramienta que nos parece importante en dos sentidos. Por un lado, nosotros aportamos información justamente porque somos cercanos a las comunidades y tenemos esta capacidad operativa cercana a ellos. Y por otro lado, la UMAIC recopila y ofrece información que junta los sectores, los distintos sectores. Las realidades comunitarias son transversales y los análisis sectoriales nos permiten en UMAIC encontrar la suma de los sectores. Entonces esto es proveer una información integral para tomar decisiones, para focalizar mejor las respuestas y las acciones.
Nosotros nos escuchamos, tenemos un diálogo franco y nos escuchamos, tanto los miembros del LC como las comunidades aledañas al LC, organismos que invitamos nosotros a nuestros espacios, pero es escuchándonos y respetando.
Aquí prácticamente hay que tener un lenguaje simple y claro. Yo creo que lo más importante que nosotros tratamos de impulsar como líder y colíderes del LC en ambos sectores, tanto el humanitario como en desarrollo, es ser prácticos, ser coherentes con un mensaje y hacer las cosas lo más simple posible. Además, contamos con unas herramientas que nos ayudan y nos facilitan las respuestas. Por ejemplo, tenemos el Humanitarian Needs Overview para el tema humanitario, pero también tenemos unas metodologías de construcción de paz y desarrollo. Esas dos herramientas, si las logramos poner en el territorio de una forma práctica, entendible para todos y ajustada al terreno, nos permite tener es un panorama general, una gran fotografía de una realidad y que nos facilita colocar las dos capas, humanitaria y desarrollo, no una sobre la otra, sino en un mismo nivel para generar una respuesta coordinada, donde hay escenarios tanto humanitarios que son inmediatamente necesarios de atender, pero que deben trascender hacia un desarrollo. Y es lo que impulsamos nosotros desde el LC, hacer ese joint entre las dos ópticas sin que haya una diferenciación. Y eso se hace práctico y rápido.
La UMAIC es una iniciativa interagencial donde se mezclan actores humanitarios y actores del desarrollo en función de generar estrategias e información, productos y plataformas que sirvan para la toma de decisiones. Involucra una suerte de plataformas de orden tecnológico e involucra personal a nivel de Bogotá y personal en el terreno en apoyo a los equipos locales de coordinación. La UMAIC desarrolla dos tipos de procesos, uno en términos del análisis de situación y otro en términos de respuesta. Generamos un análisis desde el territorio sobre cuál es la situación humanitaria en desastres o violencia armada, pero también qué sucede en los temas de desarrollo y la implementación del acuerdo de paz. En un segundo momento establecemos cuál es la respuesta que se ha brindado desde las agencias y tratamos de monitorear esa respuesta para después presentar infográficamente, generar productos de información pública para presentar esa información al grupo de donantes o al equipo humanitario país.